Yes.
I do have to correct you, Minister, that you say there's real-time publications of swimming locations. That is simply not correct. Congratulations. You've just repeated everything I've heard in my 14 years of being a Member of Parliament about bathing water quality.
So the bathing water regulations, as you quite rightly say, specifically...
Yes, that was manhandled by a rather handsy individual in the Environmental Audit Committee on the 15th of May 2024, where Tory MP Dr Matthew Offord clearly was unimpressed with Parliamentary Under-Secretary Robbie Moore.
Yes. I do have to correct you, Minister, that you say there's real-time publications of swimming locations. That is simply not correct.
I was meaning actually, and sorry about that, in regards to forecasting that the Environment Agency are putting out there.
Because the system as it currently...
Now, I don't know about you, but that look spoke volumes to me. He looked incredibly shifty to me. What do you guys think? Let me know down below, my friends.
...stands means that the Environment Agency have no legal requirement to advertise what the condition of the bathing is. It's actually a requirement for the local authority who decide that they are not going to get involved in that political argument. And the outbreak on Harlem Beach last year, that Minister Powell is certainly aware of, because the two of us were in there. We know how the system actually works on the ground. But you say that you don't have any plans, or sorry, no, you said you do have plans to change the testing. Some of us have been frustrated for many years when we've heard minister after minister tell us that bathing water quality is getting better in this country. But the system that you use to test the water is in many ways redundant. So you did say that today is the first day of the bathing water season today. So happy bathing water season. So that means that the last 226 days there's been no monitoring at any location across the United Kingdom. And the bathing water season is only 139 days long. Now, you quite rightly say that the water is analysed and it's measured against the previous 4 years, and that means that you can then designate a bathing water location. But where Celine actually was incorrect as well, the Environment Agency are required to take up to 20 samples. They don't always do that. In some locations, they only do it 5 times a year. And so that means over a 4-year period, they may have tested the water just 30 times. So if you bathe all year round, that's probably 2% testing of when you swim. So when will you actually make changes? Now we've left the European Union. I'm very aware of the EEC 76160 Bathing Water Directive intimately. When are we going to make changes to the Bathing Water Directive so it's fit for purpose?
So, as part of the announcement that was made this week, we are looking at specifically those reforms, specifically, as I was saying, in response to Selene, in regards to the dates. So at the moment, you're quite right, that bathing water period is from the 15th of May to the 30th of September. We are, as part of this week's announcements, wanting to look at reviewing that and making it better suited to usage. We know that people are using bathing water sites sometimes throughout the year and sometimes beyond those dates. And therefore, in my view, the bathing period in which the monitoring takes place needs to better reflect that, and therefore that's why we have announced that as part of this week's announcements. In terms of the quality of our bathing water sites, they have improved since 2010. So in 2010, 76% of those sites were rated good or excellent. Last year, that was increased to 90%, and that is despite in 2015 the regulations getting tighter and more stringent. We still managed to make sure that bathing water sites that were classified as good or excellent improved to 90%. And as at 2023, 96% of all bathing water sites were classified as being sufficient. So the water quality overall has improved, but as part of the reforms that we've announced this week, we are wanting to look at providing more flexibility to the dates associated with them, and also what I didn't mention just in response to Selene was looking at also the definition of bathers, because at the moment the regulations relate to if you're effectively swimming, but we know that people are paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing or surfing, and therefore because the regulations at the moment work based on effectively usage, which drives monitoring and investment, we want to make sure that the usage is absolutely fit for criteria, so therefore we're able to ensure that investment and monitoring can be sufficiently put in place. And the final point that you mentioned there was in relation to the amount of times which the Environment Agency are monitoring these sites. Well, I can absolutely confirm to everybody that whether a bathing water site is classified as excellent, good, poor, sufficient, that the Environment Agency is absolutely meeting their statutory requirements under the bathing water regulations in terms of the amount of monitoring that they're carrying out. In fact, they at the moment are averaging 3 times more than what they're actually statutorily obligated to do in terms of the amount of assessments that they're carrying out of the bathing water sites. And that data enables us as a government to allocate funding and hold those to pollute to account. And I will give you an example of a river system that I know very well in my own constituency, the River Wharfe in Ilkley, which has a designation of poor. But because it has been designated, we've been able to push Yorkshire Water to put a significant amount of investment into Ilkley. £15 million that they've spent recently in terms of upgrading the capacity within the sewage treatment process, and allocating another, I believe, £38,000 in addition to the sewage treatment work. So having this data enables us to be able to not only carry out the monitoring, but ensure that the investment is put there to demonstrate that the improvement in water quality can also be followed through.
Congratulations. You've just repeated everything I've heard in my 14 years of being a Member of Parliament about bathing water quality, and you fill me with no confidence.
Well, hopefully...
It's just incredible that you come along. There are simple ways of getting around the Bathing Water Directive, as I know, and I'm sure you probably know as well, and that is you determine when you take that sample. You can take it at locations and at times that you know that there's no overflow, there's no running water through rain, for example, at times of storms, and you can ensure that the tidal stream is in the correct position so you don't get a reading that you don't like. Secondly, you can also reject a reading if you don't like it as well. And you say that they've been undertaking the number of samples that they are required to. Yes, they are. But the amount of samples they're required to take are so low, it is simply useless in taking those kind of readings.
The regulations work on a basis of usage, and that's how it's been identified, and that's why I don't feel that they are fit for purpose going forward. That's why we have made this week's announcement on making sure that we are going to review those 5 points that I've gone through to make sure that the bathing regulations are enhanced to better meet the usage and meet the different types of environments that bathing water regulations are being applied for. We've only just seen them being started to apply to rivers within the last few years, and we've had 12 that have been additional river systems that have been approved this year. So it's right that we get the regulations to practically work on the ground.
Okay, moving on to rivers. At the moment, under the Bathing Water Directive, there are just 2 areas that are tested: E. coli and intestinal enterococci. But that doesn't actually test for other pollutants. We've heard that there's viruses, parasites, fertilizers, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, nitrates, phosphates, plastics, fecal matter, and even radioactive substances. The tests that the Environment Agency undertake, both in the Bathing Water Directive and indeed on the rivers, don't address any of those conditions. So how can you start by addressing the risks of chemical pollutants and antimicrobial resistance when you don't know what the baseline is?
So the bathing water regulations, as you quite rightly say, specifically mandate the Environment Agency to carry out those 2 tests, and as they do, meeting their statutory requirements. What does happen under the Water Framework Directive is there are 21 tests that are associated with good ecological status, of which those 21 tests, as my understanding, covers all of the points in terms of the measurables that you've mentioned there, plus others, in addition to fish, invertebrates, even down to how the river channel has been altered through mechanical means. And those assessments are done in relation to good ecological status under the Water Framework Directive, as well as there is good chemical status that is also referenced under different tests. So there is bathing water regulations that relate relates to one set of tests, which are specific monitoring points where bathing water designations take place. But then in addition to that, all rivers will be looked at under the Water Framework Directive, where there are up to 21 tests that look at good ecological status.
Okay, finally, some of these new bathing sites that are on rivers are going to be downstream of sewage outlets. So we were discussing earlier about swimming in the Thames, which I did on Sunday, and it is possible to see sewage outlets. Many of them are actually illegal, but they are still there. So how are you going to impact, how are you going to mitigate some of these sewage outlets to ensure that the Thames, I hope, meets bathing water standards?
Well, we have already brought it out, made sure that all storm overflows are now monitored. It was 7% back in 2010. We're now 100% monitoring of storm overflows from last year. So having that data available to us enables the Environment Agency to do their job as the regulator and the enforcer, where permitting requirements are not being met by a water company. But it also enables us to make assessments on where the level of resource and investment needs to go in through our plan for water, which, as I've said, is all about making sure that there is more investment that is going in where pollution incidents are out there, where the pollution instances take place, and there is tougher enforcement and stronger regulation that is being brought out, which is what our plan for water is all about. In regards to bathing water sites that are downstream of storm overflow outlets, as you've referenced, that the whole purpose of which, if those new 12 river systems that have been announced this week, after the monitoring takes place, if they are designated as poor, then it will enable more investment to be specifically put in to make sure that those sewage outlet, the storm overflow outlets, are meeting the minimum, the expectation that we would expect those water companies to meet, so that we can put in plans, better investment, better levels of resource, and deal with the problem to ensure that the quality of those designated bathing sites is improved.
Are you proud that we've designated 12?
Yes.
Well, Netherlands has 33, Germany 38, Italy 73, and France 573, and you think 12 is a proud achievement?
Well, of course, we can only deal with applications that come into the department, so I am proud that, given that it was only a couple of years ago that we had the first river that was designated in my constituency on the River Wharfe, we now have 12 rivers that have been designated this week. I would encourage many more to come forward if we receive those applications based on the new reforms that we are bringing out through our regulations. But what I can say is there is a huge amount of appetite out there. We had a consultation period in which fed into the 27 bathing water sites that we announced this year. I think as a department we had about 10,000 responses to that consultation, which clearly demonstrates, quite rightly, that people care about the quality of water, which is why we have been so robust in accelerating the measurables, the resource, the investment through our plan for water, which is all about and has at its heart improving water quality.
And finally, have you ever swum in the River Ilkley?
I haven't swum in the river in Ilkley, no.
Yes, had my smalls manhandled. Clearly spent far too much time with Mr. Pincher. Also, I bet you don't, Robbie, want to swim in the lake in Ilkley either. But I thought Dr. Matthew Offord's second to last question was very interesting. Are you proud of that we have designated 12 bathing areas, if I remember rightly? And our proud Robbie Moore said yes, then rolled off the Netherlands as 33, Germany of 38, Italy of 73 and France as 573, and then said, you're proud of just 12. Brilliant. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below, and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends. Oh, and have a lovely weekend too.